Hey guys, what's going on? Mike the Caveman Q here again, Paleo Problem Island, MikeTheCaveman.com. Another edition of Monday Nights with Mike, live stream Q&A, ask me anything, health related, you know the deal. So tonight we'll be talking a little bit about mental health, particularly depression, and the use of probiotics in combating that. I have the link for it down below in the Facebook post in the comment section. Also, if you watch this on the replay on YouTube, it'll be down below as well. But yeah, you know the deal. Any question you want, anything you want to talk about, definitely let's talk about it. Other than that, though, what we're gonna be doing is we'll be covering that paper, like I said. So let's get into it. So we're talking about the effects of probiotics on depression, and which is a review of randomized clinically controlled trials. And yeah, let's pull it up. So it's been reported that gut probiotics, and by the way, it's Wang, and Hugh back in 2016, and it's in the journal Nutrients. And talking about how it's been reported that gut probiotics may play a major role in the bidirectional communication between the gut and brain. Basically, your brain sends information to your gut, and your gut sends information back to your brain, bidirectional. Probiotics may be essential to people with depression, which remains a global health challenge as depression is a metabolic brain disorder. However, the efficacy of probiotics for depression is controversial. The study aimed to systematically review the existing evidence on the effect of probiotic based interventions on depression. Randomized controlled trials identified through screening multiple databases and gray literature were included in the meta analysis. The meta-analysis was performed using Manager 5.3 software using a fixed effects model. The meta-analysis showed that probiotics significantly decreased depression based on the scale score MD or depressive disorder with a reduction of a reduction of zero point 0.3 and with a confidence interval of 95% with a reduction of 0.51 between that and 0.09 at a with a p-value, statistical value of 0.005, which is pretty damn impressive. Now, probiotics have had an effect on both the healthy population and patients with major depressive disorder. Probiotics had an effect on the population aged under 60, while it had no effect on people aged over 65. This is the first systematic review of meta-analysis with the goal of determining the effect of probiotics on depression. We found that probiotics were associated with a significant reduction in depression, underscoring the need for additional research on this potential preventative strategy for depression, which they've said that word 1,000 times now. But yes, long and short thereof, your gut and your brain are interlinked. We've talked about this on a number of occasions, but in this case, because mental health is a topic of great interest, particularly at times like this, there is a lot of mental health issues, a lot of depression going around. So, yeah, let's talk about it. What are some potential solutions? Excuse me. So, introduction. Depression is a common mental health disorder which can be long lasting or recurrent, substantially impairing an individual's ability to function in their daily life. People with a depressed mood can feel sad, anxious, empty, hopeless, helpless, worthless, guilty, irritable, ashamed, or restless. They may lose interest in physical activities, have a loss of appetite or overeating, have problems concentrating, remembering details, or making decisions, and even more seriously, may attempt or commit suicide. It is becoming increasingly recognized that subclinical levels of depressive symptoms are found in healthy populations. Because of their impact and widespread prevalence, depressive symptoms are a growing public health concern. Nearly 20% of the population at some point in their lifetime will suffer depression. I feel like it's probably higher than that, but anyway. Currently, there are 350 million people plagued by depression, and the scope of the population affected by depression is gradually expanding. Therefore, study of the prevention and treatment of depression is a major issue. In 2001, the World Health Organization stated that probiotics as live microorganisms, when taken in certain amounts, can lead to health benefits for the host. Maddie, what's up? Now, the history of probiotics can be traced to the first use of cheese and fermented products known to the Greeks and Romans, who recommended their consumption. With further study on the efficacy of probiotics, an increasing number of reports have indicated they are beneficial to human health and well-being. It has been reported that they can decrease the number of potentially pathogenic gastrointestinal microorganisms and pathogens and reduce gastrointestinal discomfort. Hey, Jody, what's up? So, like we said, basically right now, as you guys know, as always, open Q&A, but for now we're talking probiotics and depression. Kev, what's up? How you doing, brother? Okay, so probiotics can enhance the immune system, improve skin's function, enhance resistance against cedar pollen allergens, and decrease body pathogens, as well as protecting DNA, proteins, and lipids from oxidative damage. They can also maintain an individual's intestinal microbiota in subjects receiving antibiotic treatment. So what we're saying there is it helps to regulate the immune system, helps protect DNA damage. So that's again on the cancer end, on the allergy end, autoimmune. Obsessed with kefir? Yeah, I'm totally a huge fan of kefir. You know what I like to do is I like to put it with blueberries. Big fan of that, a little bit of cinnamon. Good stuff. Yeah, but they can also, again, obviously, if you are on antibiotics, I've talked to a number of clients with that. That's a major recommendation for me. I always say that if you are on antibiotics, you better be on probiotics. Definitely important. But moving forward, in particular, it's been reported that gut probiotics may play a major role in bi-directional communication between the gut and the brain. Steve, what's up? How you doing, brother? Now, scientists are increasingly convinced that the vast assemblage of the microbiota in our intestines may play a major impact on our state of mind. Keep messing up my krauts and my cream fraiche blew up all over the weekend. I've never tried to make cream fraiche, so I don't know. Kraut I have made, and it's freaking amazing. Actually, Megaspore had sent me at one point a little kraut kit. You know what? I may have it. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah. I need to start playing around with this, but we have our kraut source right here. It is a way to make your own kraut by yourself. Megasport sent that over to me as a little gift, which is pretty cool. But yeah. Hey, brother, how you doing? Okay, so back to the point though. The effects of the gut microbiota on the immune system, brain development, and behavior have attracted attention in recent years. Indeed, gut microbiota may activate the immune and central nervous systems, including commensal and pathogenic microorganisms in the gastrointestinal tract, as gut microorganisms are able to produce and deliver such neuroactive substances as serotonin and gamma aminobutyric acid, or GABA. Hey, Doorman, what's up, Rob? Joe, how you doing? Oh, show it again? If you didn't see it, there you go, Jody. You wanted to see it? There you go. It's a kraut source. Be able to make sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, salsa, cocktails, and more. Dun, dun, dun. Hey. Woo! Sick Vic, how you doing, brother? All right. So, like we said, we're talking a lot about gut health, and probiotics. As we were saying right there, it can actually produce serotonin and GABA, which again, a lot of times you are put on mental health drugs for it, right? Prescription drugs. What are they affecting? A lot of times, serotonin and GABA. If you're having sleep disorder issues, GABA. So your gut bacteria can produce that stuff. Now, let's see if I can get this one right. Nazira Bafrui et al. Yeah, good luck with that one. Probably got that right. If I didn't get that right, sorry, bud. Anyway, they analyzed fecal samples. That's right. They analyzed some poop from 55 individuals, 37 patients, and 18 non-depressed controls, and found potential correlations between human fecal microbiota as a proxy for gut microbiota and depression. Basically, what they did, rather than going directly into the person's colon and finding out exactly what bacteria they had, well, they went and checked out the bacteria in their poop. And in that process, they were able to find that certain types of populations of bacteria were correlated with depression. Now, Zhang et al. Analyzed fecal samples from 46 patients with depression and 30 healthy controls. Excuse me, I swallowed. I was talking too fast for myself. And found increased fecal bacteria in the depressed versus healthy control group. Experimentally, elevated hypothalamic pituitary adrenal, or HPA axis responses, and depression can be reversed in rats by administering a single bacterium, which is Bifidobacterium infantis. Basically, what they're saying there is that with these bacteria, okay, specifically the Bifidobacterium infantis, by giving them one of these days I'm going to be rich. I appreciate it, Vic. Hopefully you're right, brother. So basically, by giving those rats that Bifidobacterium infantis, what they actually do is they can reverse depression. They can reduce the stress response, because we've talked about the HPA axis before, but your adrenals release those stress hormones. The adrenals, the adrenergic hormones, so cortisol and adrenaline, noradrenaline. Basically, they're in that elevated state. By giving them that Bifidobacterium infantis, we can actually help to reduce this. That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear, Vic. All right. Now, animal results show that the use of probiotics may lead to an increase in plasma tryptophan levels and reduced concentrations of serotonin in the frontal cortex and of cortical dopamine metabolites, thereby ameliorating depressive symptoms. So, again, it's helping to regulate tryptophan, which is a serotonin precursor, helps to reduce it in the frontal cortex, and the reduction of the metabolites or the breakdown products of dopamine in the cortico. Now, from there, in another report, the depression scores of rats taking Lactobacillus rhamnosus for 28 days declined. So, after 28 days on the Lactobacillus, depression declined. Now, although evidence has indicated that probiotic combination was not significantly superior to placebo in relieving symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome, a meta-analysis performed by Brenner et al. Found that Bifidobacterium infantis 35624, which is a specific strain, was associated with significant improvement in the composite scores for abdominal pain, discomfort, bloating, distension, and or bowel movement difficulty compared with placebo. So, talking about that, talk about the meta-analysis for irritable bowel syndrome, so you have gut issues there. Basically, taking that probiotic showed lots of improvements in that end. In the double-blind, placebo-controlled, and randomized parallel study conducted by Masodi et al., healthy volunteers took Lactobacillus helveticus 50052, R0052, and Bifidobacterium longum or placebo for 30 days. The results there showed that psychological stress levels, including depression scores, were decreased in subjects who took the probiotics regularly. Okay, which probiotics do you take? I'm sure you've answered this before. Yes, I have answered this on many occasions, and the answer is Megaspore. Da, da, da. Megaspore is pretty much the only probiotic I recommend. The only other thing I would add to that would be Saccharomyces boulardii, which Microbiome Labs, who makes Megaspore, also makes a good one as well. Vic, you gotta be taking the probiotics, brother. Super, super important. You need to get on the spores. Now, having said that, spores are the best one I've seen personally, but anything that you're going to get in is probably going to be better than nothing. Let me walk that back. A lot of the times, the research, and we've talked about this before too, a lot of times the problems we see in probiotic research is that the probiotics are probably going to die on the way in, and a lot of times they're given to healthy people. And if you're giving healthy people who, well, most people really aren't actually healthy, but if they have a decent diversity of their microbiota, they're probably not going to see as much benefit explicitly as somebody who doesn't have that. Okay. Didn't know if you took something separate. I forgot I had those. Definitely only took them for a week. Oh, gotta take them for more than a week. But, moreover, moving forward, we have a study performed by Mohammadi et al. Indicated that consuming a probiotic yogurt or a multi-species probiotic capsule for 6 weeks had beneficial effects on the mental health biomarkers of petrochemical workers. So, 6 weeks, eating yogurt, good to go. Helped out your brain. Another study conducted by Benton et al. Found that probiotic yogurt improved the mood of those with initially poor mood. It's a very weird way of wording that. But yeah. Happy President's Day, dude. All right. So, all right. Another study, a study by Akesha, found that 8 weeks of administration of probiotics to patients with major depressive disorder had beneficial effects on the Beck Depression Inventory scores. The effects of probiotics on human health, especially psychiatric disorders, have recently emerged as an area of interest in neuroscience. Indeed, recent studies have suggested that probiotics have potential effects on mood. As a poor diet has been shown to be a risk factor for depression, a healthy diet would be expected to have a preventative effect on depression. And the regulation of probiotics through diet may have a critical benefits for preventing and treating depression. To the best of our knowledge, no systematic review of the effects of probiotics on depression has ever been published. That's why they're doing this one. Thus, we conducted a systematic review of the randomized controlled trials in an attempt to summarize the evidence on the relationship between probiotics and depression and to identify heterogeneity between RCT trials. Basically, they went to make sure that the studies that have been done on probiotics and depression are basically the same mindset. Daniela, what's up? How you doing? Okay. So they went through, we'll go through the methods section pretty quick, but they went and to determine whether the study actually was worthy to be included. It was a randomized controlled trial, so they actually separated people out randomly and they controlled it with control versus a placebo. They included a clinical cohort and controls, and the clinical cohort's intervention was consumption of probiotics. Basically, they observed, and there was an intervention group. Those guys got probiotics. There was a control group. That group did not. Reports use similar methods and scientific rating scales for depression. So basically, there are different scales that are utilized to determine whether you have depression, and they utilize those similar scales. And the scales were reported as a mean plus standard deviation, meaning there was a range through which it could be recorded. When the same groups of patients were reported in multiple papers, only the most recent and complete paper was selected to avoid overlap, meaning that if the same authors published multiple papers on the same topic but utilized the same data set, they didn't want to repeat those. So makes sense. Otherwise, oh, well, Joe did this, and Joe did this again, and Joe did this again. It's hard to really base much evidence on the same person over and over and over. You know? Okay, exclusion. Basically, studies were excluded if there was no control group, so there was no placebo. The publications contained findings that had already been published, so again, no repeats. Results were not described as means plus standard deviations, so they just gave them a straight number. And the study did not meet the search inclusion criteria, so basically the things they said before. Excuse me. So their search strategy, they looked through a bunch of databases. You don't really need to read those out, but the search terms they used were probiotics, prebiotics, lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, Saccharomyces, which I mentioned before. Saccharomyces boulardii is the other probiotic that I like, the other strain that I like. It is a yeast, and then the bacillus spores are the ones that I really like as found in Metaspore. Now, depression or mental health were the other search terms they used. Only English language ones they used. They did not use any foreign language papers. And literature that had conference only abstracts were excluded due to lack of sufficient data. So if the research was published at a conference and they only included the abstract, no good. All right, data collection. They used the probiotics, tailored form, whatever. To analyze, they used a RevMen 5.3 software. Again, not really quite as important for our purposes right now. But in terms of the papers that made the cut, here are some of the characteristics they included here. We have Muhammad Adi, 2015, Akasha, 2015, Steenbergen, 2015, Masudi, 2011, and Shinkai, 2013. Some of them were 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 weeks, 1 month, 20 weeks. This was a nice long one. The different strains. So there was Actobacillus, there was Lactobacillus rhamnosus, etc., etc. So you get the idea here. Some of the scales, they use depression, anxiety, and stress scale, that's DASS, the Beck Depression Inventory, which is the BDI, the HADSD, which is the Hospital Anxiety and Depression Scale, and the Profile of Mood States, or the PALMS, Depression Dejection. So those are some of the scales they used. Moving forward from there, let's get to the fun stuff. Let's look at some results. Now, an adapted Prisma flow diagram shows the process of how papers were excluded. They started out with 96 papers here, as you see here, literature defined through database searching. From there, the numbers were reduced to 86 after removing duplicates, so there was 10 that were repeated. From there, they didn't meet the exclusion criteria, not original investigation, so they were review papers. The relevant data was not provided, repeated publication, so same people. They were not done in humans. Scales were reported not as a mean plus standard deviation, and they were not randomized controlled trials. After which point there were 12 papers they looked at. Full text article they weren't able to get it, and there was no control group. There were 6 left. At the end of the day, there were 5 papers that made their way into this paper. All right. Now, risk of bias for efficacy analysis were included on each one. They were basically done where the highest risk of overall bias was in relation to performance and detection. According to quality assessment studies, the 5 included were all randomized controlled trials, and the risk of bias for each was low, meaning that the research was pretty solid. It was not, there's a low risk that it was biased, or basically the results are not ones that we can trust, is the idea. Now, 3 studies divided the subjects into 2 groups, probiotic and control. One study, the subjects were randomly divided into 3 groups to receive 100 grams probiotic yogurt plus 1 placebo capsule, or 1 probiotic capsule plus 100 grams conventional yogurt, or 100 grams per day of conventional yogurt plus 1 placebo capsule. Considering the variability between studies, the 1 probiotic capsule daily plus 100 grams per day yogurt and conventional yogurt per day plus 1 placebo were analyzed. Another study divided subjects into the high dose group, a low dose group, and a control group. So we selected the low dose group, whose dose was closer to the initial study. There were 4 double-blind studies and 1 triple-blind study. All 5 studies reported the baseline data on each group, and the differences between the baseline were not statistically significant. So there wasn't a huge change there. But there's the risk of bias, is the plus is a low risk of bias, the minus is a high risk of bias, and the question mark is unclear. So basically, they're looking at different things that could be a problem. So random sequence generation, they were all solid on that. Basically, that there was nobody, you didn't slap in anybody, and we didn't include people because, we know them, we wanted to help them out. There was the allocation concealment, selection bias. Again, basically how you made your way in, and at least 2 of them, it was a low risk. The other three was unclear, but they were allocated, and it wasn't known how they were separated out. Blinding of participants and personnel, all solid on that. Nobody knew what they were getting, whether it was the person giving it to them or the person getting it. Blinding of outcome assessment. Again, the person at the end of the day did not know whether it was yogurt or placebo, or probiotic in general or placebo. They just didn't know. Incomplete outcome data, which is a attrition bias, meaning people left the study. Nope, everything's good. Selective reporting. Nope, they didn't change the information. And the other biases, again, no real issues there. So all of those, solid. Studies were good. From there, they took their probiotic, the placebo, they had the actual mean, they took their standard deviation and the total. From there was the placebo, same thing, and how much actually changed. As we see in the first one, negative 5.7 versus negative 1.5 placebo. Big change. Over here, 3.5, then 2.96. So again, big changes. They use the chi-score to declare heterogeneity, basically to compare whether they actually matched up. From there, they did subgroups. They actually separated that a little more. And same thing in SAFE. To give you an idea of what that is, and I have the link there if you really want to go through the statistics of it. I really don't want to right now. Short version of what it is the estimates for probiotics associated with depression in the meta-analysis. That was letter A, number A, right? From there are the forest plots for different ages, and then forest plots for depression status. So what we're looking at here in the first one is basically whether or not the probiotics worked with the depression. In number 2, it was, or letter B, I keep saying that, number 2. In letter B, it was how it compared by age, and then in right here, if you see, the 2.22 age over 65, and then in letter C, it was the different types of reporting, so different depression statuses. All right, moving past that, the efficacy of probiotics. As shown in figure 3, the meta-analysis comparing the probiotics to the control group showed an MD of negative 0.3 at a p-value of 0.005. That's a good p-value. That's a good thing. Now, the subgroup analysis was performed to investigate age with depression status to observe the relationship between probiotics and depression scale. The age of the subjects in 4 of the studies were 60 and below. So they had MD negative 0.43. One study subjects were over 65 years old, and that was negative 0.18. Subjects in 4 studies were healthy individuals without depression, and then one study's patients were patients with major depression. So again, without breaking that down and having to repeat every number, we'll just move through that for now. But the stability of the results was tested by sensitivity analysis. We sequentially removed a study in all of the above analyses that did not reach significance, suggesting that the results of our meta-analysis were not significantly unstable. So basically what they're saying there is they were making sure that they were ready to rock. Nice. So A funnel plot was used to qualitatively assess for publication bias. The funnel plot shown in figure 4 is partially symmetrical, indicating no obvious evidence of asymmetry, and therefore no evidence of publication bias. Basically, again, heterogeneity, or heterogeneity, there's no C in the word, the heterogeneity among the studies basically is that they were pretty much evenly balanced. They do correlate out to each other pretty damn well. Now, discussion. Major depressive disorder, often called simply depression, refers to a psychological state characterized by a low mood and aversion to activity. This state can affect cognition, behaviors, feelings, and one's overall sense of well-being. In the United States, approximately 3.4% of the population with major depression die by suicide, and up to 60% of people who die by suicide suffer from depression or another mood disorder. Moreover, the syndrome is being diagnosed more frequently in developed countries, where it affects up to 20% of the population at some stage of their lives. According to the World Health Organization, depression is currently the fourth leading cause of the global burden of disease, and it's predicted that depression will be ranked second by 2020. The World Health Organization has predicted that by 2030, depression will account for the highest level of disability attributable to any physical or mental disorder worldwide. Many treatment strategies have been used to fight disease, including pharmaceuticals, such as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, and lithium. Medical technologies such as electroconvulsive therapy, deep brain stimulation, and bright light therapy, exercise, and music therapy. Now, while medication appears to be effective, its effects may be significant in only the most severely depressed individuals. Depressed individuals have. Okay, so, rewinding that for a second. Again, let's repeat that. Medication appears to be effective, but its effect may be significant in only the most severely depressed individuals. So why are we putting everybody on these antidepressants? Yeah, depressed individuals have shorter life expectancies than those without depression, in part because of their greater susceptibility to medical illnesses and suicide. It is unclear whether medication affects the risk of suicide. Really? Really? I mean, I understand that as a research paper, you have to temper your words slightly and say that it's unclear whether that is the case. But seriously, yeah, that's crap. So I'm just gonna throw it out there and say yes, that's complete crap. It's not unclear at all. Now, the ongoing exploration of the human microbiome promises to clarify the link between the gut and the brain. Scientists are increasingly recognizing that the gut microbiome might influence neuropsychiatric symptoms and might be a tractable target for novel treatment options. A study conducted by Creon showed that the disruption of the microbiome in mice induced behaviors in ways that mimic human anxiety, depression, and even autism. Okay, does the study touch on anxiety or just depression? So this particular paper is a meta-analysis or end review of depression. But as we were saying here, they touch on it briefly in the sense that, yes, there is some mention of anxiety, but it's more specifically depression. Having said that, the research on anxiety is pretty much just as strong. Yeah, I was literally literally just saying that as you were asking that question. It popped up literally as I finished saying it. So, thus, as Creon noted that dietary treatments could be used as either an adjunct or sole therapy for mood disorders is not beyond the realm of possibility, Creon has reported that two varieties of bifidobacterium were more effective than Lexapro, an agent used to treat anxious and depressed behaviors in a laboratory mouse strain. So, to be clear, this is preclinical data, it's done in mice. But having said that, this particular mouse, right? This particular mouse study has indicated that those bacterial strains were more effective than Lexapro. So, yeah. CBD is another one there, and we've talked about CBD in mental health before as well. CBD is huge for anxiety, depression, all that fun stuff. Great idea. Probiotics are another major bonus. Now, a study conducted by Desponet assessed the potential benefits of probiotic bifidobacterium infantis using rat maternal separation model, so pulling mom away, a paradigm that has proven to be of value in the study of stress-related gastrointestinal and mood disorders. Probiotic treatment resulted in the normalization of the immune response and reversal of behavioral deficits. Despondent also found attenuation of pro-inflammatory immune responses and a rise in tryptophan, which is a serotonergic precursor, due to bifidobacterium treatment. This study provides encouraging evidence in support of the proposition that this probiotic may possess antidepressant properties. So let's talk about that. Let's break that down a little bit, okay? So attenuation of pro-inflammatory immune responses, basically. So a lot of times when we have this depressive effect, there is some inflammation going on in the brain, okay? So there could be a negative immune response going on somewhere. It doesn't necessarily even have to be in the brain, it could be in the gut, which in turn results in an inflammatory response. This can help to regulate that. So a probiotic treatment can help to regulate the inflammatory immune response, and that's part of the mechanism by which CBD works, is that it's reducing inflammation, particularly towards the brain. The other way that both the CBD and the probiotics work is through helping to regulate the serotonergic or serotonin receptors. In this case, these bacteria resulted in an increase in tryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin. And though, like I said there, it helps to show that potentially antidepressant properties. Good stuff. Now, Gilbert indicated that a high PUFA N3 or omega-3 rather diet or the administration of probiotics starting after the onset of reperfusion helped attenuate apoptosis in the limbic system and the post-myocardial infarction depression in rats. Assuming that's what MI meant. I kind of just read that as if it was. Assuming. Yeah, reperfusion. Yeah, probably. Either way, short version. Gilbert, their paper showed that omega-3, so like fish oils or fish or grass-fed beef and whatnot, omega-3s plus or probiotics can basically help to deal with those depression in rats. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled, and randomized parallel study by Masudi et al., healthy volunteers took Lactobacillus helveticus R0052, which I couldn't say before. I kept saying the 5 first, and Bifidobacterium longum, or a placebo for 30 days. The results showed that decreased psychological stress, including depression, in subjects who took probiotics regularly. So those guys took those people, put them on probiotics 30 days, and after which point, psychological stress decreased, depression decreased. Good stuff. A study by Mohammadi et al. Indicated that consuming a probiotic, yogurt, or multi-species probiotic capsule for 6 weeks had beneficial effects on the mental health biomarkers of petrochemical workers. Another study conducted by Benton et al. Found that probiotic yogurt improved the mood of those with initially poor mood. Again, I saw that one before in the intro. It's a weird way of wording that. Improved the mood of those with a bad mood to start. Right? So, short version there, yogurt, also good. Kefir, good. Fermented foods, all good. So kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha, go to town. Make it happen, Captain. All right. In the present study, we investigated the effects of probiotics on depression. 1 of 5 studies included examined individuals with major depression. The remaining 4 examined non-depressed individuals. Excuse me. The findings suggest an important role for probiotics in reducing the risk of depression in non-depressed individuals. The studies were heterogeneous in strain, dose, and duration of probiotics. The subjects' ages, depressive state, and therapies received varied with each study. In addition, the outcomes assessed vary, potentially explaining some of the between-study heterogeneity, I keep trying to say that, of the results. The risk of bias on the effect of the RCTs was low according to the analysis, and sensitivity analysis showed no qualitative changes in conclusions where meta-analysis were still possible. When the differences were studies were assessed. Basically what they're saying there is that they conducted an additional analysis to make sure that the studies were basically the same in terms of their design and methodology. They also wanted to make sure that the end results, sensitivity analyses, were, again, still clear. So that's really just the more in-depth way of saying, no, the studies, A, were not squirrely, and B, they were basically the same methodology, so we can trust that the results can be pulled together properly. All right. Most of the individual studies did not report significant results. However, the study conducted by Masudi, the one conducted by Mohammadi, and that conducted by Shinkai showed, and that one conducted by Steenberg showed there. Again, those numbers, you can read them yourself. I don't feel like reading through all of them. However, only study performed by Akesha showed a MD of negative 0.73. These results can be explained by our meta-analysis. The basic tenet of a meta-analysis is that there is a common truth behind all conceptually similar scientific studies. However, individual studies contain a certain degree of error. Thus, the aim of meta-analysis is to use statistical approaches to derive a pooled estimate that is closest to the unknown common truth based on how error is perceived. So kind of like I was explaining before, I actually went and explained it for us. The short version, again, the aim of meta-analysis is to use these approaches to find an underlying truth that we don't know for sure. So sometimes when a study isn't big enough, there's not enough people in it, mathematically you might not find significance due to the fact that there simply weren't enough people in the sensitivity and the specificity end of it. So those are type 1, type 2 errors. Again, if you know your statistics, go down that route. Otherwise, let's skip over that for now. Short version. Excuse me. Short version of that is that what you can do with a meta-analysis, that's why I went through this one in particular, is that with a meta-analysis is you take studies that are close enough together in terms of methodology, you can put the data sets together and come up with a better approximation of what's actually happening because you have a wider sample size. So sample sizes are often the key. You want to have more people in it. The more people, the better overall, because then you can see a better average of what's actually happening. Now, and that's actually why, going back for a second, during the methods section, they explained their inclusion criteria, so basically how the studies were included, that it required both a mean and a standard deviation. So your mean is that average, that midpoint, and then your standard deviation is basically how far flared away does it go. So how fast does that slope break away from it? So by telling you that standard deviation, it can tell you how wide, how weird were the ranges of it. So if they had similar standard deviations and means, it's usually a pretty good idea. You usually can tell that they're pretty on point, and you compare them together. Now, the advantage of this approach is that the aggregation of information leads to a higher level of statistical power and more robust point estimates that could possibly be based on the measures of an other than would be possible based on the measurements in an individual study. Basically, what I just said, higher statistical power means better likelihood of, of correct results based on the fact there were more people in the study. Now, the subgroup analysis of age showed that for subjects aged 16 and below, oral probiotics can effectively reduce depressive rating scales, and that for people aged 65 and older, no real effect was observed, indicating that probiotic antidepressive effects were different in different age groups. However, because there was only one study with subjects aged 65 and above, it's impossible to draw any strong conclusions. So based on this, take that with a grain of salt. Still give grandma probiotics. Let her get her yogurt in. Good idea. Don't necessarily just throw the baby. Don't throw grandma out with the bathwater. Okay? All right. The subgroup analysis of different depressive states showed the administration of probiotics to patients with depression and to healthy volunteers could effectively reduce depression rating scales, which is unlike some of our conclusions in which improvements in mood after probiotic administration only occurred in participants who showed elevated symptoms of depression at baseline. This suggests that non-depressed people may reduce the risk of depression by receiving oral probiotics. So what they're trying to say there is that whereas some ideas were that, okay, we're going to improve mood after taking in probiotics, the alternative here is that, no, if you want to avoid depression, then yeah, take in some probiotics ahead of time. All right. Yes. Now, although comprehensive and complete document, got sidetracked there for a second. People blowing me up. Although comprehensive and complete document retrieval was applied in this meta-analysis to decrease publication bias, and each step of meta-analysis was performed by two separate researchers, The research document, sorry, the reference documents and the dose entry. I done messed myself up. To researchers to reduce the deviation analysis, this study has some limitations. First, the probiotics selected in reference documents and the dose and treatment are not the same, and the other influences such as diet and medication could also affect the result. In addition, the reference documents are RCTs that are from different countries. Thus, people with different genetic constitutions or microbial exposure may have different responses to identical probiotics. So, yes, if you're from different countries, you have different genes. Different genes can potentially change the way that you respond to stuff. Same aspect, because mom had different bacteria, you're going to have different bacteria in terms of different countries, and throughout your life, you're going to be exposed to different strains here and there. Now, moving forward. Finally, the depression rating scales chosen by the research projects are different, and this may have affected the meta-analysis. Finally, some of the included studies have a small sample size, and while this might have influenced the reliability and validity of the conclusions, it's tough to tell. So either way, main conclusion, this systematic review supports the potential role of probiotics in reducing the risk of depression. Further evidence from large samples and more rigorous RCTs are needed to determine whether probiotics can significantly reduce the overall risk of depression. Hey, Mary Kay, what's up? How you doing? All right, so long and short, we have here probiotics for your brain, for the depression. Do it. Gonna help you out. All right, so now we made it through this paper, let's take some last open Q&A. Otherwise, you know the deal. We'll keep it rolling, but let's get some open Q&A questions. I'll wait for a second for stuff to come in. But yeah. All right. No, no problem about being off subject. I've said that on many occasions. If people who are joining late or people who are joining whatever, or haven't been on before, my Monday night shows are always open Q&A. Okay, so it can be anything. It doesn't have to be on topic. The idea of picking a topic is to make sure that in case people are quiet or it's a lower turnout, to make sure we have something to cover and be able to help, transmit and, translate a little bit of the research that people don't necessarily look into. So that's part of what I'm trying to do here, but awesome. So Steve's question, subject in severity, but has there been any studies on bipolar disorder as far as probiotics or any other products that support? Maybe address somewhere else. Thanks either way. Yes, there have actually been studies on that. I don't know that I've done bipolar research. Well, I don't know if I've done it. I know I've looked into it, but in terms of I've actually done a video on it. But yes, here we go. Here is a 27 paper, and this here is microbiome, immunity, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder. All right, let's open this bad boy up. Schizophrenia and bipolar disorder are serious neuropsychiatric disorders of uncertain etiology. Recent studies indicate that the immune activation may contribute to the idiopathogenesis of these disorders. Hold on, I need to word it. All right, cool. Put your words together while I read through this. Numerous studies in animal models indicate that mucosal microbiome may influence cognition and behavior by altering the functioning of the immune system. It is thus likely that the microbiome plays a role in human psychiatric disorders. The study of immune alteration in the microbiome in schizophrenia and bipolar disorder is in its infancy. But two recent investigations of the oropharyngeal microbiota in schizophrenia found differences between cases and controls. Other studies have found increased gastrointestinal inflammation in schizophrenia and bipolar disorder based on measures of microbial translocation, leaky gut, essentially. Several studies have also found an association between receipt of antibiotics and an increased incidence of psychiatric disorders, perhaps due to alterations in the microbiome. Studies to characterize the intestinal microbiome of individuals with these disorders are in progress. The ultimate test of the role of microbiome in immune-mediated pathology in schizophrenia and bipolar disorder will come from clinical trials of therapeutic agents with altered gut microbiota or gastrointestinal inflammation. Thus, the successful development of such modalities would represent a novel strategy to prevent and treat serious psychiatric disorders. So, short version of that, Steve, and D-Rock, what's up? How you doing? So, short version of that is yes. In terms of clinical research on actually treating it, there is some, not a crazy amount, but in terms of the mechanisms, definitely makes sense. I would, if you have somebody who's dealing with bipolar or anything else on the stronger end of that, I would absolutely be recommending. I would definitely absolutely be recommending that. So I just dropped a link to that paper that I just pulled up a second ago in the description. So, bam. All right. Now, having said that, let's move forward one more here. We have Mary Kate's question here, which is, I'm showing up late to the party, so if you covered this, I apologize. Does this affect serotonin, dopamine levels? Yes, we are showing up late to the party, and yes, we did address that. Now, again, I have the article linked, and no problem, Steve. I have the article linked below or above at this point, I guess, Mary Kate. However, let's pull it back up for you. But yes, certain bacteria are able to reduce, or rather, increase tryptophan and then reduce levels in the prefrontal cortex. Excuse me. So tryptophan. Here you go. Excuse me. So we have here Bifidobacterium infantis. In animal research, we are able to show that the probiotics may lead to an increase in plasma tryptophan levels and reduce concentration of serotonin in the frontal cortex. There you go. And cortical dopamine metabolites, so breakdown products of dopamine, thereby ameliorating depressive symptoms. Da-da-da-da. And then again, the regulation of tryptophan and dopamine through attenuating pro-inflammatory immune responses. Good things. All right. Also, this might sound stupid, but does bacteria in the gut microbiome break down the phenylalanine downstream to tyrosine, to catecholamines, and neurotransmitters? That's a great question. I don't know how much literature has been completed on that in total, but let's take a look. Let's pull it up. Microbiome or gut bacteria breakdown fee in PKU. Let's see if there's anything out there right now. Let's take a look. It would make sense, but here we go. PKU. This is 2016, 2010. Management. Transport load. Let's try this one. And in case I do decide to use this one, bam. All right. Inborn error of metabolism associated with high levels of phenylalanine. A phenylalanine-restricted diet supplemented with amino acids is the main treatment strategy for the disease. If started early, most neurological abnormalities can be prevented. The human gut contains trillions of commensal bacteria, often referred to as the gut microbiota. Composition is known to be modulated by environmental factors, including diet. In this study, we compared the microbiota of 8 PKU patients on a feed-restricted treatment with that. I wonder if there's Dr. Singh's on this paper. But no. All right. Let's see. Significant differences in starch, glucose, and amino acid metabolism together. Let's see. Are you in this paper? Do you know if you're in this paper? Let's see. Let's see. It is catalyzed by the fat conversion of phenylalanine to tyrosine, including we actually have conducted a study, but have not received results back. You're not, yeah. That's what I thought. I remember you saying that, but yeah. So let's see. I mean, it would make sense if we could, because amino acids are often a substrate, a fuel for gut bacteria to eat. So it's quite possible, but if they have other sources that are similar to the study conducted, yeah, no, it's pretty much on the cutting edge right now. Hold on, let's see. But here, Other strategies may include the use of large neutral amino acids. I wonder who came up with that idea, or at least who suggested that idea. Obviously didn't come up with it. But to achieve normal physical and neurocognitive development, treatment starting earlier as are possible. Da, da, da. Let's see. Here we go. Should be noted that biological significance of similarities at the phylum level is questionable, as many microbial species from the same spires can be considered pathogenic, such as Staphylococcus aureus or probiotic Staphylococcus lactobacillus. Da-da-da-da. So yeah, no, it doesn't seem like this one is the one we're looking for. This is not the research we're looking for in terms of whether or not it actually can break it down. Biodegradation of aromatic compounds. Da, da, da. Phenylacetic acid, hydroxyphenylacetic acid, phenylpropanoic acid. Nope, doesn't look great. One last question. Do I post these videos to YouTube? Yes, I do. So after the live streams go down, I go and I repost these to YouTube. Yes. For a while, I was doing these videos exclusive, my live streams on YouTube, but afterwards, I have since come back to Facebook. For a while there, I was off in terms of, I was off for a while there, but yeah. I'm back on to doing these on Monday nights on live on Facebook. Da, da, da. Potential issues, da, da, da. Gene therapy, enzyme therapy, review. Yeah, no, so it doesn't look like there has been done too much in terms of your gut bacteria actually breaking it down. Microbiome. Potential risk that engineered E. coli could interact with its wild type equivalent and could become pathogenic in humans or might alter the composition of the intestinal yeah, that wouldn't be good. Da, da, da. Showed that the PL expressed by genetically engineered E. coli to PKU mice resulted in. They showed that contained within E. coli was resistant to proteolytic activation by intestinal enzymes, though no proof of principle had been achieved. So the PEG in the PEG pal is using E. coli. Interesting. I mean, it should be fine. It's a minor component. It says about 8% of the normal gut flora could be E. coli, so it's just a matter of whether or not the engineered variety could become pathogenic. Okay, so the concern here is that because E. coli, which is used there, goes preferentially to the large intestine. Most dietary amino acids, including phenylalanine, are absorbed in the large intestine, small intestine. Yes, you got some GMO E. coli being injected into you. It appear like. Have fun with that. But Liu et al. Subcloning expressed PAL cDNA from parsley into lactus. So maybe they've changed it since then. But these data suggest that GM probiotics may be useful as an alternative therapy for PKU and may ultimately allow PKU patients to relax their diet. So this is something I've been suggesting for a while, is that injecting, basically injecting the PAL, so the PAL, which is the enzyme, injecting that into spores may be the best bet. I think that's the better way of going about this. But either way, it is what it is. But yeah, so I'll go and I'll drop. We don't really need. I know what we talked about it, so we'll drop both of these papers in the description on YouTube. Screw it. Let's go real crazy. What happened here? Okay. So wait, this means subcloned expresses from parts. Basically, that means they found what they were looking. They found the what it means by there is they took the enzymes from the parsley out. Is essentially what they're saying there. Da-da-da. No, it's cool. No worries about the last question. What's up? What you got for me? As I'm going through all the craziness here. Da-da-da. Boom, boom. Last question. What do you got? So I've bounced around everywhere, just making sure I have everything set up for the YouTube later. All right. So will I turn Italian after injecting all this parsley into my leg? All right, you're cut off. No more questions for you. All right, guys. Any last questions? It's oregano that you should be more concerned about. But any last questions? Other than that, you know the deal. Keep your eyes out. Fire cream will actually be showing up any day now. I promise. I think. But yeah, you know the deal. Like and subscribe over on YouTube if you haven't already. Would greatly appreciate it. At some point, I will go back to doing regularly with those. If you haven't seen it already, head over to the Six Borough Podcast. I did an interview, or I did an appearance on their podcast last week. It just went live yesterday, so definitely go check that out. And we talked all about the fire cream and all about the crazy other things my brain's been working on lately. So yeah, take a look at that. And guys, thanks for joining, and I'll see you next week.